US visa revoked for supporting Hamas. Indian student at Columbia self-reports. Ranjan, Ranjani Srinivasan was on F1 visa as a doctoral student, Homeland Security. An Indian PhD student at Columbia University whose visa was recently revoked by the Donald Trump administration for allegedly advocating for violence and terrorism by supporting Hamas self-deported and left the country. Ranjani Srinivasan, an Indian citizen, entered the US on an F1 student visa as a doctoral student in urban planning at Columbia University, Department of Homeland Security said in a statement Friday. US looks at travel curves on over 40 countries, Bhutan in red list. The Donald Trump administration is considering targeting the citizens as of many 43 countries as part of the new ban on travel to the United States that would be broader than the restrictions imposed during Trump's first term, according to the officials familiar with the matter. A draft list of recommendations developed by diplomatic and security officials suggests red list of 11 countries: Afghanistan, Bhutan, Cuba, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, and Yemen. Orange visas sharply restricted of Belarus, Eritrea, Haiti, Laos, Myanmar, Pakistan, Russia, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, and Turkmenistan. Yellow, 60 days to address concerns. The officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive internal deliberation cautioned that the list had been developed by the State Department several weeks ago and the changes were likely the time it reached the White House. Officials at embassies at regional bureau have been reviewing the draft. Bhutan, for example, was proposed for an absolute ban on entry. The small Buddhist Hindu country is sandwiched between China and India, neither of which were on any draft lists. The proposal to sharply restrict, if not outright ban visitors from Russia raises a different issue. The meeting comes at the backdrop voter card and Aadhaar linking. EC to meet Home Law UIDAI officials on linking voter and Aadhaar. The Election Commission is holding a meeting with the top officials of the Union Home Ministry, Law Ministry, and UIDAI next week to discuss the issue of linking Aadhaar numbers with the voter identity cards, Election Commission sources said Saturday. Following an amendment to the Representation of People Act 1951 in 2021, enabling the linking of Aadhaar numbers with the electors' photo identity cards, the Election Commission began collecting the Aadhaar numbers from electors on a voluntary basis in 2022. However, the EC has not used the Aadhaar numbers in its revisions of the electoral roll so far. The exercise was meant to aid the Commission in detecting duplicate registration of voters in order to clean up the electoral rolls. India's CAR T-cell therapy for cancer patients show 73% response rate, Lancet. US top market for India's aluminium new tariffs threaten $1 billion export. US top market for India's aluminium new tariffs. US top market for India's aluminium new tariffs threaten $1 billion exports. The Donald Trump administration decision to raise tariffs on aluminium imports from 10 to 25% starting March 12 is set to hit Indian exporters, for whom the United States has become the largest international market for aluminium products. In 23-24, India's aluminium exports to the US stood at $946 million, after exceeding $1 billion in each of the previous two financial years. Exports have surged in recent years from just $350 million in 2016-17 when Trump began his first term as US president. While India accounts for only 3 to 3% of US aluminium imports, it is the largest supplier of aluminium conductors, stranded wires, and cables used in electrical appliances applications. India is also the world's second largest aluminium producer after China, though much of its output is consumed domestically. As the new 25% tariffs are significantly broader than those imposed in the 2018, covering a wider range of semi-finished goods and finished aluminium products, it may disrupt the recent growth momentum of the firms with strong export focus on the US. However, while some may see a hit in revenues, the overall impact is expected to be limited. As aluminium exports form a smaller share of business for most companies, the US, despite being India's top market, accounts for around 12% of the total aluminium exports. In 2024, the US imported nearly 38% of aluminium conductors by weight from India. In 23-24, Indian aluminium exports stood at $946 million after exceeding $1 billion in each of the two previous financial years. Exports have surged in the recent year, up from just $350 million in 2016-17. While India accounts for only 3% of the US aluminium imports, it is the largest supplier of aluminium conductors, stranded wires, cables used in electrical applications. India is the also world's second largest aluminium producer after China, though much of its output is consumed domestically. As the new 25% tariffs are significantly broader than those imposed in 2018, covering a wider range of semi-finished and finished aluminium products. It may disrupt the recent growth momentum of firms with strong export focus on the US. However, while some may see a hit in revenues, the overall impact is expected to be limited as aluminium exports form a small share of business for most companies. The US, despite being India's top market, accounts for around 12% of total aluminium exports. As the new 25% tariffs are significantly broader than those imposed in 2018. The Commission, comprising Chief Election Commissioner Gyanesh Kumar and Election Commissioner Sukhbir Singh Sandhu and Vivek Joshi, is set to meet Union Home Secretary Govind Mohan, Legislative Department Secretary Rajiv Mani, and UIDAI CEO Bhuvnesh Kumar to discuss the seeding of Aadhaar numbers in the voter IDs. Amid peace talks, Ukraine minister other key players in India next week. At a time when talks to end the Russia-Ukraine war have gained pace after the disastrous White House meeting between US President Donald Trump and Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha is scheduled to reach India on Monday. Sybiha, who is coming to attend the Raisina Dialogue, a three-day conference organized by the Observer Research Foundation and the Ministry of External Affairs, will meet External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and may call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well. US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard will be here for the Intelligence Chiefs Conference being hosted by India on Sunday, and she will also likely meet Modi and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval among others. While Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is not coming to India, Alexander A. Dinking, President of the Primakov National Research Institute of World Economy and International Relations, will be there. Pakistani soldiers guard a tunnel after a train hijacked by militants left 31 people dead at Bolan in Pakistan's Baluchistan province on Saturday. India's CAR T cell therapy for cancer patients shows 73% response rate. The clinical trials of the results of India's first CAR T cell therapy published in the Lancet showed 73% response rate in patients suffering from specific type of blood cancer. However, the results also pointed out to the challenge for broader clinical adoption due to high incidence of a known complication of CAR T cell therapies where the immune cells get overactive, leading to hyperinflammation and organ failure. Response rate refers to percentage of patients who responded to a treatment, cases in which the progression of cancer was either halted or reduced. A letterbox in Bengal school became keeper of secrets and heartaches. Election Commission sources said that the process of deduplication would be carried out soon using an existing update to the Commission's existing software. The duplicate EPIC cards would be changed with the new ones for those electors in states not going to polls. For instance, the electors in Bengal and Tamil Nadu, where the assembly elections are due next, would not be given new numbers. The electors in other states with the same numbers as those in poll going states would be issued new EPIC cards. Aluminum conductors used in high and medium voltage cables efficiently transmit power to grid using their lightweight and durable properties. Indian exporters have been keen on US market driven by rising demand in states like California, Texas, Nevada and Arizona. In 2018, Trump had imposed 25% tariffs on steel and 10% tariffs on aluminum, but exemptions and loopholes have permitted the evasion of tariffs and weakened the effectiveness of the program, White House said in a release on February 11. India exports primarily aluminum, around 40% of the domestic aluminum production. India directs India's direct aluminum exports to the US are around 6 to 8%. Consequently, the surge in tariff is likely to have a relatively higher impact on export volumes and its realization for Indian aluminum manufacturer than steel manufacturers. Officials at embassies and regional bureaus, at the State Department, and security specialists at other departments and intelligence agencies have been reviewing the draft. They are providing comment about whether descriptions of deficiencies in particular countries are accurate or whether there are policy reasons, like not risking disruption to cooperation on some other priority. Ukraine minister in India next week. The foreign ministers of Norway, Sweden, Slovenia, Latvia, Moldova, Georgia, which are all concerned about the implications of the war, will also be here. This will be the Delhi's opportunity to play an active role in the conversations between these countries, as it does the crucial diplomatic balancing between the Russia, Ukraine, Europe, and US. Welcoming the remarkable initiative, psychiatrist Dr. Jairanjan Ram said, "Schools should adopt it. It costs nothing but still allows teachers to gain some insight into the child minds and life. Education cannot exist in vacuum. If a child's mental health is unsatisfactory, he or she will not learn properly. The initiative legitimizes expressing one's mental health issues, something usually not done in our society. A patient T cells type of immune cells are collected and genetically modified into potent cancer fighters known as CAR T cells. Patients' T cells are collected and genetically modified into potent cancer fighters known as CAR T cells so that they can express so that they express chimeric antigen receptors. Chimeric antigen receptors specific to cancer cells. Chimeric antigen receptors specific to cancer cells. The modified CAR-T cells are then multiplied in the laboratory before being infused back into the patient. Once in the body, these engineered cells recognized and attack cancer cells with a focus on B cell cancers, thus offering a targeted and potent immunotherapy. The treatment developed in India is meant for patients with two types of blood cancers that affect the B cell: acute lymphoblastic leukemia and large B cell lymphoma. The treatment developed in India is mostly meant for patients with two types of blood cancers that affect the B cells. The modified CAR T cells are then multiplied in laboratory before being infused back into the patient. Once in the body, these engineered cells recognize and attack cancer cells with a focus on B cell cancers, thus offering a targeted and potent immunotherapy. Access to cutting-edge treatments like CAR T-cell therapy remains restricted to a handful of countries owing to technological challenges and associated costs. VC to Oman High Commissioner. From VC to Oman High Commissioner, how lure of VIP landed 66-year-old in police net. Ahead of budget, as the BJP Delhi government prepares to present its first budget next week, expectations are high among rural population which played a crucial role in shaping party's win. Google Translate fake Instagram profile how three men won teen's trust and then kidnaps him. To ease recognition process of private schools online portal in works, the Delhi Education Department is set to launch an online portal to streamline the recognition process for private schools in the capital. Arms supply racket operated by Nabha jail inmate busted. Beyond this premier facility, heritage that dates back to medieval era, Talkatora Stadium. Talkatora Stadium, Delhi's oldest indoor sports facility, is known for hosting some of the biggest sports, cultural, and political events located in the heart of the city just across the president's estate. The identity of the round shaped indoor arena, however, is not limited to just being a premier facility. Delhi locks its cleanest air uh, day this year, aided by wind and rain. Traffic violations up 100% this Holi. Man heading home after Holi celebrations stabbed to death, two held. An empowered women empowers the world. BNS partly decolonized laws, difficult to shrug everything off. While underlining that it is difficult to shrug colonial hold over everything, the new criminal laws achieved decolonization, says former CGI Yu Lalit, who recently authored Law of Crimes, a commentary on the new criminal laws. In an interview to Ajoy Sinha Karpuram, the former CGI also says that removing Section 377 entirely from the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita took away a plank which was available easily. The government pegged the new colonial codes as decolonization of laws. Do you think laws have been decolonized? Partly yes. Sedition was used by the colonizers to control the natives or subjects. Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak was convicted of sedition and was sentenced to 6 years in jail. Before the Bombay High Court, he said, as a journalist, he has every right to criticize the policies of the government. Now that it is something which was denied in what is called pre-independence days, we of course continued with the same set of laws, but then in Kedarnath Singh case, the Supreme Court considered the law and said if it is pure criticism of the policies of the government, then there is no offence. Before the Bombay High Court, he said that as a journalist, he had every right to criticize the policies of the government. Now that is something which was denied in what is called pre-independence days. We of course continued to continued with same set of laws, but then in the Kedarnath Singh judgment 1962, Supreme Court had considered the law and said it is if it is pure criticism of the policies of the government, then there is no offense. Unfortunately, what happened is that the offense still continued to be on statute book and that got deleted. Now you can say that very well the colonial burden which this country was still carrying on to some extent has been shrugged off. Now criminal laws in vogue in this country for more than 150 years have been our heritage, our ethos in the administration of criminal justice. So therefore, it is very difficult to shrug everything off. But sedition, as it often still remains even in the BNS, its name has changed from Rajdroh to Deshdroh. No, not at all. As I told you, see, the very fact that sedition as a tool was used by the rulers to curb the voice of protest, correct? So, take for instance Tilak's trial. The moment he criticized the policies of the government, he was slapped with that particular charge and finally sentenced and sent to prison for 6 years. The idea was to remove all such people from the active political scenario or the scene. Now, in a free country, you can't equate that kind of logic here, correct? So in theory, what this offense now percolates down to, even in Kedarnath Singh, what the court had said that if there be any incitement to people or a section of people to take up armed rebellion against the government, then it would amount to sedition. But mere criticism of policies of the government would not amount to sedition. So what is now put in the PNS is in a distilled form. Whatever is the incitement is certainly part of that section 152, going by the law down going by the law laid down by the Supreme Court. This is exactly what the new law seeks to achieve. Is there anything that the new law has missed? Any colonial holdovers that still have made their way into the new laws in any way? Not to my mind, not colonial hold, but the entire administration of criminal justice, which was outlined as a result of these three erstwhile legislations. So the parameter of that has been maintained even in the new laws. The PNSS has introduced timelines for each stage of the criminal trial. Are these timelines realistic or restrictive? They can certainly be realized. They can be certainly be realistic in instances where agencies would prolong, some fritters would have been put. The only thing is that with the tremendous burden of cases on the courts at every level, to what extent they are able to be on the right side of these timelines is something which we will have to see. In section 20, in 2617, the Supreme Court read down section 377 of the IPC to the extent it criminalized consensual homosexual relationships, but the BNS omits it entirely, take, taking away a legal recourse for non-consensual sexual activity too. The LGBT community, when they are victims of the sexual offences, could have invoked this law. That's right, 377 has been completely deleted. What lawmakers have now done is that they have done away with this popular provision altogether, so that even in case of non-consenting adults, it could have never been taken to be an offense. There are enough provisions under the IPC where the issue can still be ventilated. So section 377 necessarily was not the only plank available. Perhaps lawmakers should have made a distinction that section 377 will not apply to consenting adults, but when it comes to somebody who is a victim, then section 377 will be retained in original form. You have taken away a plank which was available easily, that is true. Perhaps lawmakers should have made a distinction that section 377 will not apply to consenting adults, but when it comes to somebody who is a victim, then section 377 will be retained in its original form. The BNS also brings special stricter laws for organized crimes and terrorist acts under its fold. There are fears about mixing special laws which will give agencies greater exceptional powers with ordinary laws. Firstly, even now there are certain special state legislations which apply along with ordinary laws. For example, the Makoka and similar laws in about 6 or 7 states including Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, etc. These laws are not just define organized crime but also create a separate regime. A police officer can record the confession which can be relied upon in court. The police officer also has the right to intercept the conversation, of course, subject to taking clearance from the appropriate authority. Now the BNS has simply taken the definition and said this is an organized crime and this shall be punishment. But all these appendages, the extended powers of the police, are not part of any procedural law under the BNSS. So there are two things which can emerge. First, Parliament thinks that police of powers are not needed and that the existing framework is good enough for organized crime also. Second, there may be a slight overlap between the definition of a terrorist law under BNS and UAPA, and both will apply. For instance, if you will use explosive substances for committing an offense, you can be charged under Explosive Substances Act and principally under the BNS also. If you have an arm, you will be charged with the Arms Act and the BNS. Now the BNS has simply taken the definition and said this is an organized crime and this shall be the punishment. Smart cities set to end by March 31, but 7% project likely to go on. 10 years since it began. After three extensions, the Smart City mission is set to end on March 31, though the 7% of the ongoing projects are likely to go beyond the deadline. The mission was launched in 2015 with the aim of creating 100 smart cities. The cities were selected in rounds of competition held from January 2016 and January 2018, and they had five 5 years from their respective selection, that is 2021 to 2023, to complete these projects. The 2021 Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs decided to push the deadline to all 100 cities to June 2023. The deadline was further pushed to June 2024 and then March 2025. Now, sources say that approval for only less than 1% of total 48,000 crore earmarked central funding for the mission is left. In a reply to the Rajya Sabha on March 10, the ministry said that 47,000 crore of the 48,000 crore in central assistance which had been released to cities which had spent 45,000 crore. In 2021, this the cities were selected in rounds of competition held from January 16 to 2018, and they had 5 years from the respective selection, that is 21 to 2023. In 2021, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs decided to push the deadline for all 100 cities to June 23. The deadline was further extended to June 24 and then March 31, 2025. Approval for less than 1% of total 48,000 crore earmarked central funding is left, which too is expected to be approved before March 31. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs spokesperson did not respond to requests from a comment. It is learned that ministry could soon issue guidelines for cities how to take projects and infrastructure created under the mission forward. The committee is of the strong opinion that ministry's role should not be confined to transfer of their share, but they have to remain watchful of the execution and successful completion of the projects. As per the Smart Cities Mission Dashboard, the cities have completed 7,400 projects worth 1.5 lakh crore, with 567 projects worth 14,000 crore still ongoing. Of the categories of project, water, sanitation and hygiene projects accounted for the biggest expenditure so far, followed by smart mobility and smart governance. While cities proposed and implemented a range of projects, water, sanitation, hygiene, smart mobility projects and smart governance. While cities proposed and implemented a range of projects, one project that each of them had completed is setting up of integrated command and control centers at a cost of 11,700 crores. Cabinet panel on quota to submit report in 6 months, Omar. Cabinet subcommittee constituted to examine the complicated issue of reservation in recruitment has been given a 6-month timeline to complete their report. Significant day Assam. Shah on Assam Rifles relocation in Mizoram. Union Minister Amit Shah, Assam Hemant Vishwa Sharma during inauguration of Lakhit Barfukhan Police Academy in Golaghat. Lakhit Barfukhan Police Academy in Golaghat, Saturday. In a development towards addressing long-standing issue, a ceremonial transfer of land between Assam Rifles and Mizoram government took place on Saturday to mark the relocation of paramilitary force from areas in heart of Aizawl to Jokasang, 15 kilometers away from the city. Ceremony was attended by the Union Home Minister, etc. Meanwhile, the senior representatives from the state government and Assam Rifle exchanged two maps, one showing the new location of the Assam Rifles at Jokosang and other detailing of land to be handed over to the state government. The transfer itself is slated to take place next month. A memorandum of understanding to finalize this transfer has been signed between Assam Rifles and Mizoram. Speaking at the ceremony, Shah said, "It is a significant day for the state which will fulfill a 35-year-old demand for around 35 years due to various reasons, including the topography and lack of space. There was this demand that the Assam Rifles should be transferred from here Aizawl to the interiors for Mizoram's progress, for Aizawl's progress. And if Aizawl has to be made a modern city, then there is very little space for all modern facilities. Today, this old demand is going to be fulfilled because of an important decision by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is not just an administrative decision, it is a sign of India's government's sense of responsibility towards the Mizo people." Mizoram Chief Secretary Khiliram Meena said Assam Rifle will give 1 lakh 106 hectares 106 hectares of land in Aizawl, while the Mizoram government has given 13 hectares of on lease to the Assam Rifle in Jokosang. Citing a pressing need to decongest our roads and public spaces, Lal Duhoma said that the transfer will greatly facilitate the process, freeing up valuable space and resources that can be redirected towards the development of the city and improving the quality of life. The relocation of the demand was raised by the former CM Lal Denga from the Mizo National Front a year after Mizoram got formal statehood after 2 decades of insurgency. Assam Rifle personnel opened fire, killing 12 civilians gathered at 22 Assam Rifle headquarters in Aizawl in 1988. The Lakhit Borphukan Police Academy, as the Assam cabinet decided to rename it in 2022, is being refurbished for 1,000 crore. Shah said the foundation stone for the next phase. While I was 7, I was taught about Lakhit Borphukan personality, but by the time I did my graduation, not one book about Lakhit Borphukan was there in any government course. He was contained to just Assam. In history textbooks today, in 8 states, Lakhit Borphukan is included because of Himant Biswa Sarma. Andhra's skill census launch gets delayed as government's fine-tuning exercise. Andhra's skill census, an exercise mooted by the Telugu Desam party amid calls for caste survey in the state, has faced 1 month delay in its full-fledged launch as it undergoes what government sources said was fine-tuning. The exercise was scheduled to be launched on February 15. Another ASI killed in Bihar, this time while trying to mediate disputes between families. Pfizer scientist death, neighbor arrested. Vadodara road accident, car black box to be examined, blood reports awaited. Prepare to deal with deal maker. The first charter of rights is to believed. The first Charter of Rights is believed to be the Magna Carta, agreed by the King of England in 1215. The first Parliament of the world is believed to be the Althing in Ireland, established in 1262. The first bicameral legislature can be traced to The first written constitution of a country was of the Republic of San Marino in 1600, and the doctrine of separation of powers is attributed to the spirit of laws published in 1748 by Montesquieu. The great and good lessons of constitutional history were embodied in the US Constitution, and it had been copied by many countries, including by the makers of Constitution of India. Free and democratic countries led by the United States promised to make a new world order that will end war, poverty, and disease. They succeeded to a large extent. Though the new order could not end local wars, the world had never before witnessed 8 decades of relative peace, unprecedented growth, and widespread prosperity. It has therefore come as a major shock that developments of the last 3 years, and in particular the developments since January 20, 2025, threaten to reshape the world in a selfish and authoritarian mold. The office of the President of the United States is unique because of its vast specified and unspecified powers, aided by the fact that America is the richest country in the world. Exercising those powers, William McKinley expanded the territory of the United States and annexed Puerto Rico, Guam, Philippines, Hawaii. Woodrow Wilson, Franklin D. Roosevelt suppressed free speech and used executive orders to detain and deport foreigners and dissidents. Barack Obama started a war in Libya without the authorization of the US Congress under the War Powers Act 1973. Other presidents have tested the limits of the office and got away with apparently unconstitutional acts. None more than so None more so than the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. For 8 decades, despite aberrations and misadventures, America was considered the leader of the free democratic countries and the underwriter of the world order. Numerous world institutions were created to advance the cause of peace, education, healthcare, human rights. However, in barely 8 weeks under Trump, US had quit the WHO and threatened to quit or halting the funding to the United Nations Human Rights Council. And the United Nations Relief and Work Agency. Mr. Trump has shut US aid and brought to a halt dozens of programs throughout the world. He may quit NATO and abandon European allies, domestically egged on by Mr. Elon Musk, the world's richest person. Mr. Trump has begun to dismantle the structure of the US government. He has fired thousands and is likely to shut down the Department of Education. Under Mr. Trump, friends have become foe. President Zelensky and foe have become friend Putin. Mr. Trump courts Canada to be the 51st state of USA and has openly invited Greenland to join the US, aiding ominously that we will get it one way or the other. Mr. Trump has made no distinction between foe and friend and is willing to make deals. I have made deals of all my life, he boasted, and after inviting, humiliating, and throwing out of President Zelensky, he invited him back when he is ready to sign an agreement for presumably critical minerals. Mr. Trump called it payback. Where will the world go with transactional president of the United States and confessed deal maker, and what are the implications of India? For the world, the authoritarian leaders will form a club. Mr. Trump, Putin, Mr. Z. They will grab territory, America Ice, the Panama Canal, Canada, Greenland, and Gaza. Russia has already annexed Crimea, Abkhazia, and South Ossetia, and Ukraine wants Ukraine and perhaps Georgia, and China, after forcefully integrating Tibet and Hong Kong, has made no secret of its desire to annex Taiwan, significant parts of India and South China Sea, and its highlands. The three countries will attempt to divide the world into areas of influence and exploit the resources in the respective dominant area. India will be vulnerable to China, and neither America nor Russia will help. For India, the country will be forced to buy more military equipment from the US, India will also be obliged to import more goods from America at low tariffs. A detente between America and Russia will mean that Russian oil will no longer be available at cheap prices. India may be persuaded to downplay BRICS. Quad will not be seen as hostile to China. Pakistan and Bangladesh will forge closer ties under their common patron. The US, if Mr. Trump starts a tariff war, it will upend rule-based world trade and India's economy will be ruined. Like Germany and France have realized India must fend for itself. Mr. Modi may think that his dosti with Mr. Trump will bail India out. Not a chance. Mr. Trump is selfish and an egoist and will not care even if he crashes the world's economy. Hang on, world, for 4 years. For India, the country will be forced to buy more military equipment from the US. India will also be obliged to import more goods from America at low tariffs. A detente between America and Russia will mean Russian oil will no longer be available at cheap prices. India may be persuaded to downplay BRICS. Quad will not be seen as hostile to China. Pakistan and Bangladesh will forge closer ties under their common patron, the US. If Mr. Trump starts a tariff war, it will upend rule-based world order and India's economy will be ruined. Like Germany and France have realized it must fend for itself. An odd thing happened after my column appeared last Sunday. Soon after I posted it on X, came under full attack by the hypersensitive, hyper-nationalist Indians who thought I had portrayed China in a better light than India. The thrust of attack was that I had failed to notice that China was not a democratic country with a free press, aggressive opposition parties, and the freedom we take for granted. When it became clear that there were many readers of the column who felt this was the way, I responded to a particularly belligerent critic by saying that instead of behaving like a chippy Indian with an inferiority complex, he would do well to notice what China had got right and what we in India have not. Suddenly, I got inundated with an unexpected flow of support. So, let me begin by admitting that I was gratified to see I had touched an empathetic nerve. There are clearly many Indians who agree that China invested in the things that go towards making a strong country and we did not. No country can be strong if its population is weak. I am personally not mad about the term human resource development, but the use here it is exactly this area that the leaders of India have failed to invest. This is why I planned this week to expand on what I believe India needs to urgently do do urgently to make us able to compete with China, a country that is without question our biggest and more powerful enemy. We also need young Indians to be given the tools to compete in an increasingly competitive world. It is my fervent hope that our political leaders will urgently discover that without proper schools, healthcare, nutrition, young Indians will remain unable to deal with the changing realities they face. The average Indian child is forced to go to school that are so bad that they are lucky if they leave school with basic literacy. Study after study has revealed that Indian children finish school without being able to read, write, or count adequately. This is not just because educational standards in our ancient land are abysmal, but because they are not healthy enough to concentrate on learning. Last week, Parliament was told by Minister of Women and Child Development that 38% of Indian children under the age of 6 are stunted and 17% 38% are stunted, 17% below the weight they should be. Of these, some are below normal weight, then they are considered wasted. In this age when artificial intelligence is beginning to compete with human intelligence, most Indians leave college without the qualifications needed to become employable. Is it any wonder that young people from our richest states pay small fortunes to human traffickers who promise to take them to better countries? In the few weeks since Donald Trump has returned the White House, some of these desperate young Indians have been sent back. When our When are our political leaders going to admit that the prospects of young Indians are so grim that this should be considered a national emergency? The Prime Minister likes to tell us that he is working on securing our Viksit or securing our Virasat, while at the same time ensuring as much attention is paid to Vikas. Has he noticed that if he weighed on a scale, it would be Virasat that would weigh a great deal more than Vikas. Almost not a day goes by when some BJP leader is not seen banging on our culture and heritage. They rarely tell us what they plan to do about bringing us closer to becoming a full developed nation. In all fairness to Narendra Modi, it must be said that since he became Prime Minister, the speed at which roads, ports, airports, and some vital infrastructure is being built has been truly remarkable. If there are failures, it is at the level of chief ministers who have most performed dismally. It is because of their failures we have not seen that improvement in schools, healthcare, nutrition, and other things that are needed for our vast population of young children to become competitive in the world. This is the reason why foreign investors, when choosing an alternative to China to build their factories, usually choose countries in East Asia. They have invested heavily in the things that really matter. Some of the people who responded to last week's column said we needed a dictatorship in India for us to get ahead. No, we do not. We need our political leaders to drastically change their priorities. We need policies that will take advantage of having the largest population of young people in the world instead of just boasting about this in international forums. We need our leaders to start doing something. The missus who doesn't cook dinner. Trump orders gutting of 7 agencies, including Voice of America's parent. For President Donald Trump signed an executive order Friday seeking to dismantle 7 additional federal agencies, including one that oversees Voice of America and other government-funded media outlets around the world. Trump directed the heads of the agencies, largely obscure entities that address issues like labor mediation and homelessness prevention, to eliminate all the functions that are not statutorily mandated. The leaders should also reduce the performance of their statutory functions and associated personnel to the minimum presence and function required by law. Like many of the president's moves in his wide-ranging effort to shrink the government, the order appears to test bounds of his authority. Voice of America's parent, the US Agency of Global Media, for example, is congressionally chartered as an independent agency, and Congress passed a law in 2020 intended to limit the power of agency presidentially appointed chief executive. The other agencies Trump targeted are the Federal Mediation Council Service, which works to prevent and resolve work stoppages, Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, etc. US expels South Africa's US Trump hater envoy. The United States has expelled South Africa's ambassador. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Friday, calling the envoy a race-baiting politician who hates America and President Donald Trump. Ties between the United States and South Africa have deteriorated since Trump. Can't allow Russia to play games with peace, says Starmer. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer hosted a virtual meeting with world leaders from 25 countries on Saturday to bolster a so-called coalition of the willing against Russia in its ongoing conflict with Ukraine. We can't allow President Putin to play games with President Trump's deal. Leaders representing Ukraine, EU Commission, NATO, etc. Uh, were expected to have joined the meeting to discuss the peace deal. If Putin is serious about peace, it's very simple. He has to stop his barbaric attacks on Ukraine and agree to a ceasefire. And the world is watching. Starmer accused the Russian administration at the Kremlin of a complete disregard for Trump's 30-day ceasefire proposal. It only serves to demonstrate that Russian President Putin is not serious about peace. If Russia finally comes to the table, then we must be ready to monitor ceasefire. To Indian origin ministers in Canada, PM Carney's cabinet will release hostage only if truce agreement is implemented. Hamas. G7 ministers toughen their stance on China. G7 foreign ministers took a tough stance on China on Friday, stepping up language on Taiwan and omitting some conciliatory references from past statements, including to one China policies. A statement by ministers mirrored a February Japan US statement in condemning coercion towards Taiwan. Compared to G7 foreign minister statement in November, statement added members' concerns over China's nuclear buildup, although it omitted references to their concerns about Beijing's human rights abuses in Xinjiang, Tibet and Hong Kong. Also missing were references stressing the desire for constructive and stable relations with China. An airstrike by Myanmar's military on a central village under the control of pro-democracy resistance group has killed at least 27 civilians in Myanmar. The attack occurred in Singhu Township, 65 km north of Mandalay, the country's second largest city. This dune is the largest conveyor belt in the US, moving sand in Texas. IndusLand Bank's financial health stable being monitored closely. The bank revealed a potential 2.35% adverse impact on its net worth after internal review of its derivative portfolio. Implement dynamic pricing for AC classes periodic fare reviews. Indian Railway earnings 92,000 crore expected and 80,000 crore. While reiterating its earlier recommendation to increase passenger revenues by reviewing AC class fares, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Railways has said the government should implement a dynamic pricing model for AC classes and premium trains. It must also ensure affordability for low income passengers to ensure to balance social obligations. It It added that a comprehensive fare review should be undertaken from time to time to align AC class fares with cost and ensure gradual and affordable adjustments for non-AC classes. The commitment therefore recommends that Indian Railways should adopt a comprehensive multi-pronged strategy to enhance net revenue while ensuring affordability for low-income passengers. This includes implementing dynamic pricing models for AC classes and premium trains, regularly reviewing flexi-fare schemes based on demand, and expanding non-fare revenue through initiatives like e-auction policies, advertising, and commercial utilization of railway assets. The committee also feels that in order to balance social obligations, Indian Railways should continue targeted subsidies for suburban and non-AC travel. However, operational efficiency must be improved through accelerated electrification and energy efficient technologies. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman meets SEBI chairman. India's deal activity peaked $7.2 billion in February. Private equity deals. Ecosystem for pre-litigation consumer redress soon. The government is putting in place an ecosystem to eventually resolve consumer complaints at the pre-litigation stage itself. We want the consumer complaints to be resolved at the pre-litigation itself. The Bureau of Indian Standards has conducted raids on warehouses of various e-commerce platforms including Amazon, Flipkart, seizing several uncertified consumer products after it identified that these are being sold online. OpenAI must agree for fast-track legal battle over for profit shift. India may face AI talent shortage of $1 million by 2027. So that's all for today. See you in the next one.